Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1138A, and today's date is November 28th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Central Bankers Are Quietly Discussing Taxing Withdrawals from ATMs. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we've been talking about Black Friday and how sales and traffic to these brick and mortar stores, well, it really didn't happen this year. The National Retail Federation reports that spending per person over Thanksgiving weekend this year was $289, down 3.4% from $299 the same period last year. Now, internet sales, they did rise. People decided, you know something, I'm not going to go out to the stores. I'm going to use the internet instead. Now, this doesn't mean that people are spending more. It just means it's a trade-off. And when we look at this from Retail Next, and we look at the data, we show that brick and mortar stores, well, their sales have fallen about 5% over the 2 days, and the number of transactions fell by 7.9%. And people are reporting that there is no traffic whatsoever at these stores. Very, very light. Over one-third of the shoppers said 100% of their purchases were on sale items. Now, this fits into what has been going on, where people have lost their jobs. People have part-time jobs. They don't have the funds to spend. And when we look at this Gallup poll, well, it just confirms everything that we've been thinking. Because we can see right now that the data that Gallup has received shows that overall holiday spending plans have plunged in 2016. Individuals have said this year they're going to spend a lot less money, and it is declining. So this shows us that people are struggling, people are nervous, people don't have the funds, and they're not spending their money. And we can also see it from what the stores are doing. They're trying all different methods of trying to bring the consumer in. And they had the Black Friday sales going on like a week ahead of time. The Cyber Monday sales are just not on Monday anymore. And they're continually doing this because what's happening is they're not getting the sales they want. This is why a year ago or 2 years ago, they tried opening up on Thanksgiving, and they were open the entire day, and they found out, well, sales didn't increase doing that. So now they're trying something else instead of looking at what the real cause is. The real cause is the economy is in trouble. People are being laid off. People have part-time jobs. People don't have the funds. But they're not looking at this. And as we go through this holiday season, it's not going to improve. It's going to get worse. And we're going to see a lot of stores close down. We saw it in the last 2 years where a lot of stores closed after the holiday season. And what we're going to see is that this holiday season, it's going to show that the economy is really not doing what the corporate media, what the U.S. government, what the central bank has been trying to convince us of, that everything is recovered, everything is fine. Because if this was so true, spending would be up. People would be comfortable in spending their money. They wouldn't be saying, I'm just looking for sale items. They would increase their budgets. But again, we're not going to see this year. We see the housing market, well, it's in trouble. And this is coming from the Wall Street Journal, where it's pointing out that mortgage refinancing, they're set to drop 46% in 2017 because the interest rates are rising. Well, this should tell you something. The only reason the real estate market is doing what it's doing is because they manipulated it. They kept the interest rates very low. They had hedge funds, investment companies come in, purchase tons and tons of houses. The central bank bought up the toxic real estate. Once the manipulation ends, the real estate market is going to collapse. And we're already seeing signs of this because the Mortgage Bankers Association is saying that, yeah, if interest rates rise, mortgage apps, refinancing, they're going to completely implode on themselves. And when we look at Case-Shiller And we look at the bubble right now in all different areas, in Atlanta, in Boston, in Dallas, in Denver. We can see that right now, housing prices in these select areas, well, the bubbles are larger than they were in 2007, 2008. Which means that when this crashes, it's going to be a complete disaster. And when we look at all these different cities, Atlanta, Boston, Dallas, Denver, North Carolina, Portland, San Francisco, Seattle, we can see that this is part of the 20 cities. This is where they're having the hedge funds, the investment companies come in, foreign investors. They're doing whatever they possibly can to pump the bubbles up to make it look like real estate is really doing well right now. And what we're seeing is that when this whole thing comes crumbling apart, it's going to fall fast and hard. There's a new proposal now being whispered around the central banks in Europe to impose a tax on withdrawing your money from an ATM. The banks say, yeah, this is a great idea. Of course it's a great idea, because this will prevent bank runs. What they're going to do is they're going to try to do whatever they possibly can to stop the bank runs. Why do they want to stop the bank runs? Why do they need a tax on withdrawing cash? Well, first of all, it gives them revenue. Secondly, people think twice about using cash. And you can be taxed quite a bit depending on how much cash you take out. So we're heading into a very dangerous period where the central banks, the governments, they are becoming desperate. And the war on cash right now is in full swing. We see right now that India, Uruguay, Australia, and now Spain, well, they put their war on cash into overdrive. The Minister of Finance and Public Service has reportedly announced in Spain that they're going to put forth these measures in order to reduce the use of cash. So Spain is going to make cash transactions even more difficult. And we can see why this is happening. Europe right now has negative interest rates. Japan has negative interest rates. People are saying, why should I keep my cash in the bank? It makes no sense. Many people are so nervous about the banking system that they're removing their cash. They did it in Greece. They're doing it now. And they realize once the system comes down, they need a way to lock in the cash. This is why they would like to ban cash. This is why they're looking for all different methods to keep the cash inside of the banks. Because they want to use the bail-in documents. And what we're seeing right now is they're making these last attempts to try to firm everything up before the entire system comes down. We see out in Italy, well, there is the referendum that is looming, and we see the bankers, well, they're using their scare tactics, telling you that everything's going to fall apart if the referendum goes through, that the banks are going to fail. And this is what they did in the UK, and this is what they do when things aren't going their way, when they're trying to scare everyone into doing what they want. And we can see that the Italian banks, they are hurting. We understand that they're not doing well. And we can see there's a lot of bad loans. Italy's banks have about 360 billion euros of problem loans. And there are many banks that are having this problem. And of course, all these central bankers have to do is give the green light, and they can bring anything down they want. They have full control of the system. Everything is manipulated. Many people think that, oh, this is just a free market. No, it's not. Today, it is completely manipulated. The central banks hold all the cards. They can bring the system down whenever they want. They can keep it going. The only problem with that is that there could be some type of black swan that they didn't figure on, because as you know, the central bankers' plans, they don't always go as planned. Something can come out of left field, right field, and everything could completely fall apart. So what they're doing is they're trying to keep everything alive. They're trying to keep everything going until the right moment. And what they're waiting for is something to blame this entire crash on. Now, they were heading in the direction of blaming this all on Russia, blaming it all on China, blaming it all on North Korea, maybe Syria, the Islamic State. But we can see that's all falling apart. It's going to be very difficult to do this at this point. Can they still do it? Yes. But then there's the wild card, which is Trump. Now, we don't know if he's an insider or an outsider. We understand that Ron Paul's saying, if you want to make America great once again, get rid of the Fed. I completely agree with him. And we have to see the actions of Trump if he makes it that far. And he's actually sworn in January. Because we can see the establishment, the central bank, the shadow government, they're doing whatever they can to stop this. And what they're doing is they're taking it step by step. And eventually, if all these things don't work, they're going to go full throttle. And if he is sworn in, most likely they will crash the entire economy, the world economy, during Trump's reign. Because we can see, and of course what they'll do is they'll just blame him for all of this. Now again, I am for a president, and we should all be for a president that works for the people. The people who campaign during an election, they say a lot of things, but their actions really show us what they're all about. And I'm still waiting for Trump to get into office. I'm still waiting to see what his actions are. I know he's putting together his transition team, but again, he's done nothing. And we also have to realize is that these globalists, they've been working on their plans for a very long time. They were molding the world into what they wanted. They were creating the world in the image of what they wanted. And we can see right now that they're not just going to give up on this. They want what they were planning for a very long time. And they're not going to stop. This is the point where everyone should be really worried, because right now we're going into uncharted waters. And we can see that if they don't get their way, they will go full throttle in trying to get their way. And at this point, everyone should be a little bit nervous. Everyone should be looking at the situation saying, you know something, I better double up on my preps. Because if these individuals don't get their way, they will collapse the economy like we've never seen an economy collapse. Because the system is built on a complete illusion. And once they pull the plug, the illusion will go away, just like in 2008, and the whole thing will cease to exist. The way of life, the way everything is going to completely change. This has happened in many, many countries before. We just haven't experienced it yet here in the United States. And people are not going to be understanding. They're not going to realize what's going on. And people are not going to be able to handle what's going on because they've been listening to the corporate media, they've been listening to the government, and they're not going to understand what just happened. Because one minute everything was fine, the next minute things are not fine. And this is why everyone needs to be ready and prepared with food, water, a weapon to protect yourself, gold, silver, cash on hand, medical supplies, to be ready for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.